What's the enduring legacy of punk rock?
The enduring legacy of punk rock is, well, Christmas lights all year round. That's all that it offered us in the end.
Michael Stipe has consistently created distinct and interesting visual work. At first, it was easiest for people to spot this among all the imagery that went along with the band REM. From their album covers and band photography, to their music videos, and their lighting and stage design. He's also produced a bunch of feature films, including Being John Malkovich, Velvet Goldmine, Saved, and American Movie. I recently caught up with Michael at one of his workspaces in New York, where we looked at his websites, his sculpture, and some of the objects he's been creating.
This is my studio. We're in New York City. This is a little bit of a temporary studio space for me here in New York. I'm working on finding a larger space that I can work in. But I have a place in Athens, Georgia that I work, a studio. And basically, I've been working a lot in three-dimensional sculpture. And some of the pieces look like paintings, although they're not paintings. A lot of the pieces are photo-based. Where I find myself now is that I'm working on several different ideas and several different projects at one time. Some of them I'm actually able to create with my own hands, and others I have people that are helping me. I love where technology has brought us right now, and what I see in the immediate future is something closer to what I imagined as a child. That's almost where still imagery has gotten to. I find that not challenging in a frightening way, but I find it challenging in a thrilling way. The photograph for me in the last 6 years has become something that, rather than being an end in itself, a piece in and of itself, it's become source material for something else. And that's where, as an artist, I guess, who doesn't work in music or who's working outside of music, that's where I'm kind of really in new territory for me, and I'm really trying to explore what that means. This is a piece that becomes another piece that hangs from the ceiling. So you put a bunch of these together, you put stuff on the inside, and then you stick your head inside of it. That's the actual image, but then I took it and turned it. I'm doing a three-dimensional piece, but in cutting it out of the plywood, I wound up with this form that I then turned one revolution to the left, and it created this almost kaleidoscopic, weird painting. It's not a painting, it's not a sculpture, I don't know what it is, but they're beautiful. I did go to art school, but I dropped out because of the band, because of REM touring, but I've carried a lot of that through doing a lot of the visual stuff for the band, and then other things that I've done outside of the band along the way. The band had come off tour, and I was in that very adrenalized state at the end of a year-long tour where you don't really know what to do with yourself. 9 o'clock comes at night, and you're like, I'm supposed to be on stage entertaining, and you're at a dinner with friends and family, and everything seems incredibly flat. And so it was perfect for me to be able to kind of come off of my own tour and jump right on tour with Patty. And what happened was I got on her bus and kind of stayed on for weeks because Bob Dylan asked her to continue opening for him, and I just kind of didn't get off the bus. And I had my camera, as I always do, and I took pictures, and at some point, like 10 days into the 14 days, I think, I realized to myself, like, wow, there might be really, actually, this could be an interesting document. This is a very, very pivotal time for her, a pivotal time for myself, for a lot of people, I think. It was offering something that was incredibly progressive, I think, and I was there to document that. So Two Times Intro was documenting a 2-week period of Patti Smith kind of returning to live performance, and I was along for the ride. What that book became was a document of the time. It's not actually, I don't think it's fine art. I don't think they're actually even photographs. It's pictures, and it's pictures that are put together to tell a story. I thought after that I was going to put out at least a book a year, and it didn't happen. What did happen, though, was photography started changing very dramatically for me with the advent of digital technology and everything moving from kind of classic film to digital. The technology, or the inability for that piece of machinery to capture an image the way film did, how it would change the way you looked at what you're looking at or what you're trying to capture. And I started thinking about how can I take this and transform it. So in 2007, I did a project online called Future Epicenter, where I forced myself to take a picture a day for a year and post it online with the idea of trying to challenge how I saw the world through a digital camera versus a normal camera. And in fact, I saw the world very differently, simply because the technology allowed me a lot broader and a very different kind of landscape or vista with which to see the world. But I now have a Tumblr site that's more this. It's more what I'm doing in this space and what I'm doing in my studio in Athens, working with plastic, working with paper, working with plywood, birch plywood, and working with photography and kind of taking that as a source material and turning it into different things. All right, so here we are. This is Confessions of a Michael Stipe. .tumblr.com. These are all Milan. That's Paris. That was in Sao Paulo at the Biennial. These young artists built this unbelievably beautiful room. They used tile that they made themselves. This one is a book of instruction and drawings by Yoko Ono. And I just photographed it as a corner because I thought it was really stunning. When do you ever see that many Yoko Onos in one place? In a way, like the rest of the world, I'm kind of self-publishing on my Tumblr site. Thrilled to be doing it and really thrilled with the reaction that I'm getting. It's called Confessions of a Michael Stipe.tumblr.com, which I think was my kind of inside joke of, this might not be the Michael Stipe that you think you know. This is actually me. I'm not really confessing much of anything except that I've kind of expanded into the idea of working in three-dimensional, work. Outside of music, I'm doing something that's object-based. This is from 2008. It's bronze. It's very heavy. And it's very solid. I think of all the pieces, this is the most successful, except for this, which is the flash to a Diana camera. But I have to unweld. I have to cut these things off and sand it down there. But this in the hand is like a perfect object. It's so beautiful. I became obsessed with the idea of things that are now obsolete forms of communication, and I particularly cassettes, 8-tracks. And cameras that are essentially obsolete. I mean, you can do it, yeah, it's there, but why would you bother? So I became kind of obsessed with the idea of creating these replicas of these things, and I thought, what material could I do this in? And I went to bronze. I used to say laughingly that sculpture is what you back into when you back up to look at a painting. For me, a construction site or the scaffolding on the outside of a building is more interesting than most work that's commissioned as public art. I use the term sculpture because I don't know what else to call these things. A lot of them are pieces that hang on a wall, but they're not paintings, they're not photographs. They're three-dimensional. So I've just been kind of blanket using the term sculpture. You're going to see a piece that I've done 5 versions of, and it's called A Cast of the Space Under My Cheap Plastic Chair, which is referencing an earlier conceptual piece. But kind of updating it to include the plastic chairs that are ubiquitous, the monoblock chairs, and kind of going back to when the ability to create a monoblock chair in the 1960s was something that actually was a very profound technological leap forward. But we now just think of them as those crappy plastic chairs that fall down if you tip back in them, and that you see everywhere. So I've done the negative space under those chairs, and I've got 5 versions of them. 4 are here. 1 is on loan for a show, which is really exciting. Who knew it would do that? I sure didn't anticipate it. This would not be complete at all without Douglas Copeland and my friendship to him and the work that he did as a writer, but then outside of that, I think 10 years or 12 years ago, he started working in the plastic arts, and I would go to his house, and there's a chair that looks like a vertebrae of a skeleton, and I'd say, Doug, what is that? And he said, oh, I made it. I'm like, how did you make that? And he would tell me, and I started getting these ideas, like, if it's that easy for him to do that, and actually he has an idea and he's able to manifest it in a physical form, I should be able to do that as well. So Doug's influence on me was profound because he really was kind of the first person who said, you can do that. When I was a teenager, I knew that I wanted to make music, and I knew that I wanted to create things, but I wanted to be surrounded by other people with like intentions. And I feel suddenly like, my God, that's my life. I'm surrounded by creative people, and we all have these ideas, and everyone's kind of batting them back and forth, and we're in our very small way, maybe propelling things forward in some way. And that might be the job of artists. That might be the job of creators, to really kind of examine the moment that we're in from a perspective that might make you think about it in a different way, and then push everything forward in a way that is actually progressive.